Hey everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 90 of this RTS tutorial series. In this video, we will finish out our engineer tree. And I can't believe we've made it to video 90 of this series. So I really want to give a thanks to the community for the support, a thanks to my Discord community, my Patreon community, and all of you guys on YouTube. Alright, all that mushy stuff out of the way, fire up your project, and let's finish out our engineer behavior tree. Hey everyone, welcome back to the editor, and we're going to try to knock out the last two parts we have to do for our engineer unit, which is what it should do when it has no tasks to do. We'll do that one definitely, and if we're not eating up too much time, what to do when we add a new building in for the engineer unit to construct. So, if we want to start with what to do with when the unit is done, we need to first pop open our engineer behavior tree here and take a look at this service we have. And if we close the get distances, we will need to make a second edit here, by the way, for just making things a bit cleaner. And I should have done this in the last video. I neglected it, but fortunately, because we have to make edits for this to get the construction to work correctly, we can make those in a moment. But let's take a look here. What we need to do here is we need to tell the system, the AI system that is, that the unit is no longer doing anything. So our thing for that is our unit status. So we don't currently have a unit status. I'm just going to just toss these into a category called Enums. So I had them all in one spot. So we're going to need a new Blackboard selector. So let's make that variable now. Actually, let's make the Enum first. This will be status Enum. And this will be of our unit status. So unit status Enum. This will go into our Enums folder or category. And we want to set this. Now you could skip this step and just go straight into the next part if you remember what is idle. So is idle is 0. But I like doing it this way in case you change the enum down the road. All right, and now we need our status Blackboard key selector. So this will be a Blackboard key selector. We'll toss that into our Blackboard selector category. And we want to get this. And then we want to set Blackboard value as enum. And we're going to plug the execute into there, plug the value into value. Now, we could stop there. But if you remember, when we first started doing this entire series, before we got to the, not the entire series, when we first started doing the AI and we created that button in the UI, I said there might be an issue. Well, the issue shows up right here. Let's go take a look at our widget for a second. So if we open up our unit info widget and we come down to our do job inside our graph. So we check, is it automated? If it is already automated, we're turning it off. We set to idle and we turn this off. If this is then false at this point, when we click the button, we then set it to doing work. Well, the problem then is here, we're setting it back to is idle, which means it's no longer automated. And honestly, there's no way for us really to call that particular widget up to make the change. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go over to our unit master in particular. Leave the widget open, by the way. We will need that in just a moment. And let's go to our unit master. And in here, we're going to create a new function. And this function is going to be very similar to our SetIsBusy. It's going to be SetIsAutomated. And all we're going to do in here is we are going to have one bool value. So let's create that variable now. And that is, why do I have two capital letters? Is automated. I hope I spelled that correctly. I can't see through my microphone, unfortunately. Toss that into our bool folder. Grab it, set it, take this value and plug that into the input there, and add a return in. Now, all we need to do is go to our widget again, and at the end here, this is the false one. We're going to get our unit reference. We are going to pull from this, and we're going to call that function isAutomated. So call function SetIsAutomated. Leave it as false. Copy that, or actually, we're just going to Control W this part of it. Delete that part. Set to true. And then I'm just going to pull off this unit reference here and plug that into there. The last thing we need to do is get rid of this. Take our unit reference, and then get the isAutomated. And we want it as a getter there, not the setter we made. Plug that into there. And we can delete this isAutomated here. I'm going to quickly save and compile just to make sure that I'm not using it elsewhere. I'm not sure where it's in use. Find references. All right, so it's not really in use. It's lying to us. Let's make sure there are no bugs. We'll just hit, yep. So there are no bugs. We're good. It was just giving me an error because it was still thinking I had it in use from earlier. Next, what we're going to do is go back to our BTS engineer find target, and we are going to turn off the isAutomated. So we're going to drag from here, and we're going to set, actually I lied, we're going to get a reference first to our unit, and we are going to set isAutomated as false. That resolves that little issue I hinted at a little bit ago, and gives us more of a proper object orientation. All right, so that took a little bit less time than I thought it would. So we're going to jump into doing our constructing buildings. And that means we're going to need one more thing in our Enum here. So let's close out our widget, and let's close out our unit master. I don't think we'll be going back to them. We do need this open because we will be making changes here. So first, though, let's go to our Enums. And we want our Enum, our engineer Enum targets here. So we have none, both, building only, vehicle only. We want one more now, and this will be our under construction Enum. So if we go back here, we see that that's there, which is awesome. Now, there's just one problem with this entire setup, and that is when we get targets, well, this update building list only gets constructed buildings. So what are we going to do? Well, we need to make one that gets unconstructed buildings. And we could cheat and put this off the false here and do an unconstructed one. However, if you do that, you're still going to need a second function. And I'll explain why you need a second function if you do it that way when we make the function that will get the unbuilt buildings. So all we're going to do is we're going to take this update building list, we're going to duplicate it, and we are going to get our unconstructed building. So update unconstructed buildings list. That's very long, I realize. And this one's fairly easy. We're going to delete that part of it for now. And what we want to do here instead is create a new variable, so promote variable, of list of unconstructed buildings. And we're going to make one more change. We're going to drag all this down here. We're going to plug that into the false. And if you want to make it a little bit neater, you could make a local variable for the array element. You don't have to. When I say a little bit neater, you'll see what I mean in just a second. And that same thing is why we have to have two functions. So if we make this list, which I am not sure why there's a semicolon showing up at the start of that, or a colon, there we go. We need to also remove buildings from this list. Actually, we technically need to do the same thing for constructed buildings, but when we destroy a building, it will no longer be of this class, so it removes itself down the road. So what we're going to do here, actually it's not entirely true. We do have to go back and update that later on. What we're going to do here, though, is we're going to take this, we're going to duplicate it up here, and we're going to remove item. So you want to remove all instances of the item from the array. So you want the array, not the set here. We're going to plug this into the true. So if a building was constructed, if you put it on the map, so it's not one we already had there to begin with, and then we remove it, or sorry, then we build it, and we want to remove it from this list. And I'm going to be a bit cheeky and not create that local variable and just do it this way. If you did a local variable, you just plug it in here, and then you make a reference to that local variable there and there. All right, now we've done this. If you don't do this part, your unit is always going to think there's an unconstructed building, even if it's already built everything there. So that takes care of getting our list of buildings at least inside of our player controller. Now we need to call this function up, and we're only going to call this up inside of our find target. And inside of our find targets, well, let's take this one step at a time. Let's go back to the event graph for a minute. And so if we take this from the event graph, we don't need to do anything here. We're just doing our reference class. We don't need to clear our targets. However, I should have a return node at the end of this. And the reason we don't need to clear our targets is the function we just created will clear targets for us. So we're good there. Let's close that one out. Do put that last bit in of the return node. Now our get targets. Our get targets will have to change a bit. So we still want to get our constructed buildings. We still want to get our vehicles. Now, instead of returning at the end of this, we're going to have one more thing to do. And to do that, we're going to get our unit reference. And this is where we're calling that up. We're going to get our player controller reference. So get controller ref. And we are going to update list or update unconstructed building list. That will go into the completed after the loop, and then we'll have the return node here. So this will clear our targets for us as well. All right, now that we've done that, well, we need to clear distances. Now, we don't have our distance yet for our unconstructed buildings, so we'll take care of that one in just a moment. We can get rid of the get targets. We'll leave the clear distances open though. So let's go to our get distances, and then we'll jump back to our clear distances. Now, I said in the start of this video, we should have done some stuff in the last video that I didn't do. So let's knock that out as well. And we're actually going to need to move everything over a bit. And then we're going to need to move the second line over a bit. And we'll break this for a moment. We're going to break this as well. And what we're going to do is we want to actually make sure there are buildings in this list. Otherwise, we don't want to go through that loop. So we're going to get the length of the array. From the length, we want to check is a length greater than 0. That's what we're going to check. So is the length greater than 0? Or you can do is the last array element greater than 0. And I sometimes prefer it that way, as you guys have seen. But we'll do the length, and we'll put a branch in. If this is true, then we're just going to go over to this loop, and we'll actually carry this over that way. Put a reroute in so it's a bit neater. If it is completed, it goes down here. We'll put a reroute into this and bring this here. Now, if this branch is false, we're still going to want to check for our vehicles. Now, we're going to need to do the same thing with our vehicles. We need to check, is there anything in that array? Are there any elements there? So we want to get the length of it. We want to check, is this length greater than 0? If it is, we'll have a branch, and we'll carry forward into our for each loop there. And we're going to plug that array into there, put another reroute in just so it's a bit neater. And we'll unhook this completed now, because now we need to consider our unconstructed buildings. And we're going to create a pure function for this, but we'll do that inside this graph, then collapse it down. We'll take our unit reference. We will get our controller reference. And then we will get our list of unconstructed buildings. So list of unconstructed buildings. And before we collapse this down to a array, or sorry, to a pure function, we're going to create a for each loop real quick. For each loop. All right. Now grab these 3 nodes, right click them, collapse to function. This will be get list, or get unconstructed building list. It is a pure function. And first thing we need to do again is check the length of this list. I'll break this, get length. If the length is greater than 0, we want to continue. So is it greater than 0? If so, then we'll go into that for each loop, which we have to make in a second. So plug that into the true into the execute there. Plug the completed into the branch. Put your reroute in here if you want. I like having that reroute. And plug the false from our vehicle branch into the unconstructed building. Because remember, even if there aren't any damaged vehicles or buildings, there might be unconstructed buildings. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to then take from here and plug that into our array. Again, have that nice little reroute in there to make it a little bit neater. Still going to have some crossing wires, unfortunately. And we're going to do the same thing we did above. Add unique. And what we're going to add unique is the distance. So take the array element, get distance to, and then we want the distance to the unit. And then we'll take that return value, plug that into the add unique. And let's create a new variable here called construction site distances. We'll toss that into our distances list. And now we're completed, so we can come off the completed here into the return node and off this false into that same return node. Just going to put a reroute in so it's a bit neater looking. There we go. All right, now that we have our list of distances, we can clear that list in our clear distances. So just get your construction site distances, clear, plug that into there. So now we don't have any extra distances that's going to confuse the unit or confuse the AI. Close that out. So we've cleared our distances. We get our distances. Now we need to check our target validity. And this is where it gets a bit more complicated. So we have the Boolean logic from last time. Well, there are a couple ways to approach this. If you want repairs to be the primary focus of the engineer unit, you'll do it this way. If you want construction to be the primary focus, do everything we're about to do at the very end of this list here at the very start instead. If you want it to switch based on what's going on, you'll need to create a finite state machine that switches, that has a transition between the two states of focusing on repairs or focusing on construction. And that's a bit more complicated. That would take at least 1 to 2 more videos to get through how to set that up. But you already have the tools from other videos, so if you're interested in trying that, look at what we've done previously and see if you can work out how to do it. All right, so now the only difference here is we're going to break this last one off this false. So we're going to focus on repairs first, as I said. So it's going to repair everything and then do construction. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to have a branch down here. And in this branch, what we want to do is we want to get our... Well, we could do the same thing. We could get our vehicle distances, get the last index of it, or we can use that pure function we just created of get the unconstructed building list, and we can search for the last index. Not LSAT index, sorry about that. Last index, and check is it equal to or greater than 0. And plug that into there. Let's just move this up here. And this one's fairly simple. We're also going to duplicate that down here. So the off the is true. Remember, we've already said there are no buildings or vehicles that are damaged. So if this is true, then we are under construction conditions. If it is false, then we are none. All right. There we go. So let's go back to our event graph now. Now we need to tell it what to do. And this is going to be very similar to our target building function that we created, except for we need to do something slightly different with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our target building, and we are going to duplicate it, and this will be our target construction site. Now, if you want to be really good in your object orientation, you could make this a polymorphic function, the target building, so it switches between things that are under construction and things that aren't under construction and need repair. But I don't want to get into polymorphism in this tutorial. That will be for the next tutorial. What we are going to do is we're going to delete these two nodes here. That's all we're going to do to this. We're going to get our construction distances, and we're going to take that function we created a moment ago. Whoops, that's the wrong function, so let's delete that. And we're going to get our unconstructed function there, or unconstructed list, and take that pure function and pass the information in. Everything else here remains the same. We should never go into the blink, by the way. So we still need to make that our target building, and we still need to send our unit to it. All right, so that takes care of our target constructed buildings. We can get rid of that as well. So, I'm not sure how that ended up all the way over there. I was kind of confused. Sorry about that. So our under construction now, what we need to do is we need to pass a call to that target constructed buildings, or unconstructed buildings, sorry, into there. Now, there is one problem. This will not work. And it won't work because we haven't given the behavior tree the logic to make it work. So take a look at our behavior tree. We come in, we find if there is a target, or what type of target there is, if it's blank or not equal to blank. If it's not equal to blank, we then just do our repair task. We don't have anything in here that's going to differentiate between repair and construct. So the way we're going to handle that is we're actually going to break this for a moment. And don't delete anything. We're going to need to copy most of this. I'm just going to move this to the side. This part remains the same. We are going to instead pull off of here and get a selector. And on this selector, repair or construct, because remember, as a selector, it doesn't matter what order we actually do the branches in. It's going to pick the right branch. We're going to take our building needs repair and plug that into there. We're going to rename this as building is targeted instead. The names don't matter. This is just for ease of use. So building is targeted. And it still be the same condition. We want to make sure it's not equal to blank. Now we're going to take our building repair sequence, drag it down here, and plug that into there. We're going to take these three nodes, ignore the repair building node, and duplicate them over here. So Control W for duplicate. And we're going to construct our building on this part here. Just move this so we have a bit more room to play with. So we have a repair building sequence here, and this will be our construct building. So construct building. Now, we need something that selects between these two. Well, to do that, we could use another enum, and I thought about doing that, and it's easy enough to do. Or we could use another Boolean value. And since we already have so many enums, let's just create a Boolean value you will use. And all we're going to do is we're going to add a new bool, and this will be under construction. Leave the default as false. Save that. Go back to your behavior tree. And in your behavior tree, we're going to add a blackboard decorator. And this blackboard decorator is building needs repair. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to get our blackboard key of under construction, and we're going to have it as is set, or sorry, is not set. So if this is not set, that means it's a building that needs to be repaired. Let's duplicate this over here, so Control C, and this will be building needs construction, and in this case, this will be set. So now we have one more thing to do. Now that we have the logic in our behavior tree set up, we need to tell the service how to differentiate these two states. So let's go back to our find target here. And in our find target, we are going to create one more Blackboard key. And I already made a mistake, by the way. We need to make that something that's visible. So we need to make that an instance that's editable. You know what I mean. So the other Blackboard key we need is our construction or under construction. And put that into the same folder. Make sure it's something that our AI can see. And we're going to grab this. We are going to set bool, or set Blackboard as bool, and plug that into there. Before we set this as true or false, just duplicate it once up there. Now this target construction site, that will be true. And up here, we're going to set this to false. And just to make our lives a bit easier, just to make sure that nothing goes wonky, we'll set it up to be false there as well. All right. Now, we still have an issue. It will go to the building. It will see that it's under construction. It will wait 0.3 to 0.7 seconds, and then it will go back into the building. So we need to have another task, and this is a relatively simple task, fortunately, that says, hey, building's done. And all we're going to do then is create a new task, base it off the blueprint base task here. Go back to your AI folder. We're going to name this BTT underscore eng for engineer construct building. And let's just pop these open and move that into our engineer folder. And let's go into here. And in here, all we're going to do is we are going to get our receive AI or tick AI. And yes, we do want this on tick. And because we want this on tick, we definitely need to cast that smart way. I mean, anything in the AI, you want to cast that smart way. We're going to get our controlled pawn, and we're going to cast to RTS unit master. Convert to pure cast. You know all this already, so you should already be ahead of me since I'm going slowly, since I'm talking. So remember, again, we need to check is valid. Again, I'm only talking to fill the void of silence, but you should already be familiar and comfortable with making this cast if you've been following the series. And again, you really shouldn't cast off ticks, which is why we have that is valid check. We don't want to cast multiple times. All right, all we're going to have here is a branch. So we're going to pause for a moment just to collapse our cast down to a macro. So this is our reference cast. And again, I'm just going to neaten this up. You really don't need to change it to execute and then. I just don't like having the extra words there. All right. So all we're going to do here is we're going to get that unit reference we've just made. From our unit, we're going to get our targeted building. If I can spell things correctly. Get target building. And our target building has two variables we care about. Is built and is under construction. You could get away with just using one of these, by the way, but since we have both, we'll use both. And we're going to put an and in here, and we're going to grab off of here and get not. We do not want it to be under construction. And we're going to plug that into there, plug the and into our condition, and if it is built and no longer under construction, then we finish execute. And this will finish that sequence out. Make sure you mark this as true. And finally, the last thing we need to do is we need to call this into play. So we pull off of here and eng construct building. And for the love of God, since that's so long, I'm just going to rename this node as construct. There we go. Now, we aren't done yet. If you try to run this, you're going to run into errors. I moved the camera intentionally so you can see what that error might be. Take a look here. Now, you might be lucky and it might automatically get status correct. Sometimes it does for me, sometimes it doesn't. but make sure everything is correct. So location type is location type, target location is target location, status is status, under construction is under construction. Now let's go ahead and save everything and test this. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to zoom out a bit just so I can see stuff. Do job. It's going to go to the vehicle. As it's repairing the vehicle, I'm just going to put a silo here. Remember, it will do the silo last. Our unit's done with the vehicle. It's now going to move over to the barracks. There we go. It's done with the barracks. It's going to move over to the training post. Again, remember the collision box does extend down to here. All right, it's done with that. So now they're going to run up to the factory. And remember, because we default the health at 98, when it's done constructing, it won't finish quite yet. It will actually be a building. The silo will be at 98% health. So it'll jump back into the silo, and then it will finish doing whatever it's doing. All right, there we go. 50%, nearly there. And again, remember, when it's done, we'll get a 98% health. So this will say 98, but it'll say healthier. So there we are. Jumps back in. All right. Seems that we have a little bit of an error. So let's go to our behavior tree before we cancel this out. And it still thinks something is under construction. So let's go back to... I'm not sure where the unit just went through there. How strange. Okay. So I'm going to cheat a bit. Oh, it's actually still at the silo according to this. All right. So what happened there? It still thought it was under construction. Well, that should not have happened. So let's run the test one more time. And I'm gonna run the test one more time. I'm gonna pause the video and I'm gonna see what's causing that problem. So the mistake was actually really obvious. I should have caught this the second I looked into my service tree here. So remember how I had us put the non-true one up there? We still need to do that down here for the target building. Otherwise, it's going to get confused. So with that in place, we can now actually test this. And let's send our unit to do some work there. As it moves, we'll put a silo in. We'll speed this up. If you want some really fun stuff, in the test I did when I paused the recording, it pushed the car onto the rocks there. I'll move the car out of the way. And the rocks that are up there. And the car started flipping around. It's kind of funny to watch. All right, so Kelly's finishing her repairs. Sorry, I have a breakpoint still there. And she moves on to the next part. Finishes with this one. Moves on to the factory. There we go. And when they finish with the factory, they'll come down here, do the construction, get it to 98, leave the building, come back and do the repair. Actually, they might not even leave the building. They might stay in it because we actually technically haven't told it to release the unit, which might be something you want to do when it finishes construction. So, worst case scenario, it's actually what we will do in a second. It does release the unit, comes back in, finishes the repair, and then it exits the building, and now it's no longer running anything. So I put another silo here. Notice the unit doesn't move to it. It, however, is fatigued, so it's going to sleep. So that shows that our system is working. Now, if we didn't have it fatigued and I hit do job, it would run to the silo and repair it. Now, that said, all we're going to do is save everything again, close it out, and we now have finished our sub-branch of our behavior tree for our engineer unit. That is not what I meant to point to, our engineer unit. Remember, we're leaving this here for a test. We will do our harvester unit in the next few weeks. Unfortunately for us, our harvester is much easier. We've already written a finite state machine for the harvester. We send it to harvest something. When it's full, it transitions from one state to the next state of go back and drop your stuff at the silo. What we'll do then is we'll add a series in that checks, well, one, is there space in the resources we have to allow for me to go back to harvest more? If so, I'll go and harvest more and then return it to the silo or factory. So we already have a lot of it set up, but now we just need to get the finer bits for AI control to work. All right. All of that said, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed setting up our engineer unit to do its job. And if you have, go ahead and hit that like button. It really does help this channel out. And if you want to be here when we set up our harvester unit to have an automatic to have a harvester automatically harvest resources for us, go ahead and hit that subscribe and notify icon. And if you want to help this channel out further, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. That said, yes, I repaired the car first down there, by the way. That said, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.